Hi everyone, welcome back to Difference Frames the World, a channel that offers a unique perspective on global events. Here is Clara, and today, we're unpacking one of the most anticipated political encounters of the year, the meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump in South Korea. Let's break it down: what happened, what was said, and what it could mean for the world. It's late October 2025, and the coastal city of Busan, South Korea, suddenly finds itself at the center of world attention. It is where the two most powerful men on the planet met face-to-face for the first time since 2019. The air is thick with anticipation. Cameras flash, reporters swarm, and security is tight around Gimhae Air Base, just outside the airport. Both leaders walk in with confident smiles, but behind those smiles lie months of economic strain, tariff threats, and political maneuvering. When they finally shake hands, Trump calls Xi Jinping a very tough negotiator, and adds with his usual flair, "That's not good." But he quickly softens the tone, saying they've always had a great relationship. Xi Jinping responds in his calm, measured style: China and the United States should be partners and friends. He reminds everyone that, with two countries so different in size, culture, and systems, disagreements are natural, but he insists that both must stay on the right course. So from the very first minutes, the tone is clear, competitive but courteous, firm but friendly. Now, let's talk about what this meeting was really about, because it wasn't just small talk. Number 1, trade. Both nations have been locked in an economic tug-of-war. Tariffs, export controls, and restrictions on rare earths have shaken global markets. The meeting signals a moment of hope for a truce. Trump came to Busan with American farmers on his mind. He wants China to buy more U.S. soybeans, of which Beijing reduced the purchase sharply during the trade war. Xi Jinping, meanwhile, wants the U.S. to ease tariffs on Chinese exports that have been weighing down parts of China's economy. Number 2, rare earth minerals and supply chains. China dominates the processing of these critical materials, essential for electric vehicles, smartphones, and even fighter jets. With the U.S. threatening new tariffs and China curbing exports, both sides have reasons to talk about stability. Number 3, the global economy and geopolitics. As the meeting began, markets were watching every move. Chinese stocks actually hit their highest levels in a decade, a clear sign that investors were betting on calmer waters ahead. And hovering in the background, as always, is geopolitics. Taiwan, the South China Sea, and the tech rivalry that runs through everything from semiconductors to artificial intelligence. Both sides are toning down at the meeting. According to the live updates from many news outlets, both leaders arrived with large delegations, advisors, trade negotiators, translators, and security officials. Every word was weighed carefully. It is noteworthy that U.S. Secretary of State Rubio finally had the opportunity to meet with major Chinese leaders. Because China has sanctioned him, he cannot visit China, including the Chinese mainland, Hong Kong and Macau. On October 25, he confirmed that the United States will not walk away from Taiwan in exchange for a trade agreement with Beijing. In the meeting room, however, he seems very timid when facing the Chinese leader and his delegation. Donald Trump is never shy about showmanship. He told reporters, "I think we're going to have a fantastic relationship for a long time." He even claimed that a lot of things have already been agreed. Xi Jinping's message was more philosophical: cooperation over confrontation. He said the two nations' interests were deeply intertwined, and that turning their relationship into a partnership benefits not just China and the US, but the entire world. So while the words sounded diplomatic, the underlying message was clear: both sides want to cool things down, but on their own terms. One might wonder, why did this happen now? Well, there are a few big reasons. First, the timing. Global trade has been in fluctuation, and both economies have felt the pressure. For Donald Trump, facing political heat back home, a trade deal, or even a pause in tensions looks like a big win. For Xi Jinping, engagement with the US sends a signal that China remains an indispensable player in global diplomacy. Second, leverage. China's control over rare earth elements gives it bargaining power. The US still needs those materials for key industries. So both sides have cards to play. And third, optics. Meeting in South Korea during the APEC summit gives this encounter an international stage, less a backroom deal, more a display of global statesmanship. What does the meeting mean for both sides? Let's break down what each leader is likely hoping to walk away with. Donald Trump wants China to commit to big agricultural purchases, such as soybeans, corn, and pork, to show he's helping American farmers. He also wants to demonstrate to voters that he can negotiate from the position of strength without losing face. Xi Jinping wants predictability. A calmer trade environment means less pressure on China's export sector and more space to focus on domestic priorities, such as technology innovation and consumption-driven growth. Both of them want the world to see them as capable of dialogue, powerful yet pragmatic. Now, here's where this meeting really matters. When the two leaders shake hands, the world economy holds its breath. Investors crave certainty. When the US and China fight, everyone pays. When they talk, confidence returns. It's not just about economics either. Diplomatically, the meeting also reassures allies, particularly Japan, South Korea, and Australia, that US-China competition hasn't completely broken down. And for smaller countries caught between the two, like Vietnam or Indonesia, it's a reminder that the world's biggest powers can still sit at the same table, even if they don't always agree. We don't yet know what exactly was agreed. There may be a framework, a commitment to resume soybean imports or suspend new tariffs, but the fine print hasn't been made public. And then there's the enforcement issue. Even if both sides announce something, who ensures it actually happens? Previous US-China deals have shown how easily good intentions can fade once domestic pressures return. There are also big-ticket issues like Taiwan, tech exports, and human rights. They're still hanging out there, unresolved, waiting to flare up again. This meeting isn't just diplomacy. It's a theater too. For Donald Trump, it's a comeback story. He gets to look presidential, commanding headlines and negotiating with China's leader on the world stage. He can go back to his supporters and say, "I made a deal." For Xi Jinping, the optics are equally important. He gets to show the Chinese public that China stands shoulder to shoulder with the United States, as an equal partner, not a junior player. It's about prestige as much as policy. In other words, this isn't just a trade negotiation, it's image management at the highest level. Chinese state media hailed the meeting as a constructive and friendly exchange. At the same time, Trump supporters in the US called it proof that only Trump can bring China to the table. It is true that although Donald Trump could not keep the US government's door open, he still managed to meet his Chinese counterpart. Still, there are negative voices. Critics argued that neither side is offering lasting solutions. It is just a temporary truce to boost their own political fortunes. Despite the renewed dialogue between Trump and Xi Jinping, Taiwan is confident that its partnership with the US remains strong. However, the island cannot rely on the so-called partnership with the United States, which is only interested in the island's money, not security. The Chinese mainland has declared October 25 as Taiwan's Restoration Festival when celebrating the 80th anniversary of Taiwan's recovery from the Japanese, a political move to a reunification with the island in the immediate future. Under Donald Trump's presidency, the US is least likely to involve itself militarily in the Taiwan Strait. We still maintain that Xi Jinping will reunite with Taiwan during his third term. Although China is now talking with the United States, and both sides have made small progress, any misstep in Taiwan, the South China Sea, or in export controls could quickly undo the progress. Likely, both sides will have a short-term agreement, a suspension of new tariffs, or a pledge to increase agricultural imports. Both sides might set up teams to handle follow-up negotiations on tech, energy, and rare earth elements. This meeting reminds us that great power politics isn't black and white. The US and China are competitors, yes, but they're also deeply connected economically, technologically, and strategically. They can't just walk away from each other. Their economies are intertwined, their supply chains overlap, and their global responsibilities intersect. As Xi Jinping himself said, China and the United States should be partners and friends. And even Donald Trump, in his own way, agreed. I think we're going to have a fantastic relationship. Hopefully, he will not forget what he said on the second day. Those might sound like polite platitudes, but they carry weight because dialogue, even imperfect dialogue, is better than silence. Believe it or not, China and the US are two superpowers that deeply influence the world. It's not that Xi Jinping and Donald Trump can solve the world's problems overnight. They cannot. But they did talk, and in today's world, that's something. We might look back on this meeting as a turning point, the moment the world's two biggest economies decided to step back from the brink. Or we might see it as another pause in a long, uneasy rivalry. Either way, it matters. Because when the US and China find a way, however temporary it might be, to cooperate, the entire planet breathes a little easier.